I, 60, F, have one son, Mark, 35, M. He is what people call a self-made millionaire. He started a tech company in his 20s, and it took off like a rocket. I was proud, of course. Every mother wants to see her child succeed. But the money changed him. It polished him into something hard and shiny, something I could no longer see myself reflected in. My husband, his father, passed away 10 years ago. It was just me, Mark, and my daughter, Sarah. Sarah is a teacher. She is kind and steady, but in Mark's world, she was invisible. He saw her life as small because it did not generate capital. For my 60th birthday, Mark decided to throw a party. It was not the kind of party I would have chosen. My ideal celebration would be a quiet dinner with my 2 children and maybe a close friend. Instead, he rented out a massive ballroom at a downtown hotel. There were hundreds of people there. Business partners, investors, people with names I only recognized from the news. I felt like a prop in his life story. The theme of the night was celebrating the woman who made him possible. It felt less like a tribute and more like he was taking credit for my existence. I smiled until my cheeks ached. I shook hands with strangers who complimented me on what a fine son I had raised. Each compliment felt like a small paper cut. They were not celebrating me. They were celebrating his success, and I was just the vessel that had carried him into the world. Sarah stood beside me for most of the night, her hand a comforting weight on my arm. She saw my discomfort. She knew this was a performance. The climax of the evening was the gift. Mark got up on the stage, a microphone in his hand. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight found him. He spoke about his humble beginnings, a story that got more humble with every telling. He talked about my sacrifices, painting a picture of a saintly mother who went without so he could have a second-hand computer. It was an exaggeration, but it played well to the crowd. My mother has always been my anchor, he announced, his voice booming through the speakers. She kept me grounded. And now, I want to give her a way to finally float, to enjoy the fruits of her labor and mine. A screen behind him lit up with a picture. It was a yacht, a sleek, white, beautiful boat bobbing on turquoise water. The crowd gasped and then applauded. I felt a wave of nausea. A yacht. What on earth was I going to do with a yacht? I lived in a modest suburban house. I had never sailed in my life. He walked over to me and handed me a small, velvet box. Inside was a golden key on a chain. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. He hugged me, a stiff, public embrace. I hugged him back, my mind reeling. Then he leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for me, a sharp little pinprick in the balloon of his grand gesture. "Enjoy the yacht I loaned you," he murmured into my ear. My blood ran cold. I pulled back and looked at him. His smile was wide and perfect for the cameras flashing around us, but his eyes were cold. He had not given me a gift. He had given me a temporary privilege, a prop to enhance his own image as a generous son. And he had made sure I understood my place. I was a borrower. He was the lender, the owner, the one in control. I stood there, the golden key feeling like a lead weight in my hand. I had to keep smiling. The applause was deafening. I felt like I was drowning in it. All I could think about was his word. Loaned. It was a slap in the face disguised as a diamond bracelet. It was the cruelest thing he had ever done to me. And in that moment, surrounded by his adoring crowd, I knew something had to change. I was not going to be a prop in his life anymore. The party finally ended. The drive home with Sarah was quiet. She kept glancing at me, her brow furrowed with worry. "Are you okay, Mom?" she finally asked as we pulled into my driveway.
I'm just tired. Elite.
It was a big night. It was a Mark night, she corrected gently. All about him. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "That yacht thing was insane," she continued. "What are you even going to do with it?" "I have no idea," I said, my voice thin. I did not tell her what he had whispered to me. I was too ashamed. It felt like a secret between a master and his servant. The next morning, I woke up with a feeling of dread. The golden key was on my nightstand, glinting in the morning light. It felt like a tiny, ornate shackle. Mark called around 10. So, did you sleep well? He asked, his voice cheerful and loud. I slept fine, Mark, I said. Good. I'm sending a car for you at noon. I want to take you to see the boat. You're going to love it. He did not ask if I was free. He simply announced the plan. Mark, I don't know anything about boats, I said, trying to push back, even a little. You don't have to know anything, he said with a laugh. You just have to sit on it and look good. I'll hire a captain for you whenever you want to take it out. It's all taken care of. The words taken care of sounded like a threat. My life, my time, my birthday gift, all taken care of by him. I felt a flicker of anger. I have errands to run today, I said. Cancel them, he said, his tone shifting from cheerful to commanding. The car will be there at noon. Don't be late, he hung up before I could argue. The car was a black town car, with tinted windows. It felt like being transported in a jewelry box. We drove to a marina I never knew existed, a place filled with boats bigger than my house. Mark was waiting for me on the dock, wearing sunglasses and a polo shirt that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. There she is, he said, gesturing to a yacht at the end of the pier. It was enormous. It had 3 levels and gleamed so brightly in the sun it hurt my eyes. It's very big, I said, which felt like a stupid thing to say. It's the best, he said simply. Come on, let's go aboard. He led me up a small ramp onto the deck. The floor was made of a beautiful teak wood. Everything was polished chrome and white leather. It was a floating palace. He gave me a tour, pointing out the master stateroom, the guest cabins, the galley that was better equipped than my kitchen at home. And this is the best part, he said, leading me to the top deck. There was a hot tub and a bar. Imagine having your friends over here for a drink. I imagine my friends, a group of retired teachers and librarians, in this setting. The image was so absurd it was almost funny. They would be terrified of spilling something. We stood at the railing, looking out over the water. It's beautiful, Mark. It's too much, I said. Nothing is too much for my mom, he said, putting an arm around my shoulder. It felt possessive. You deserve it. I wanted to scream at him. I deserve a gift, not a loan. I deserve a son who respects me, not one who uses me as a status symbol. But I stayed silent. I was still processing the shock of it all. What's its name? I asked, looking for the name painted on the side. He grinned. I named it The Next Chapter for you, Mom. A new chapter in your life. Retirement, relaxation, enjoying yourself. The name felt generic and corporate, like something from a self-help book. But it was not actively offensive. I felt a small, tiny measure of relief. At least he had not named it the Mark I, or something equally egotistical. He showed me a small compartment where the boat's official documents were kept. Everything you need is in here, he said. Registration, insurance. My assistant's number is on a card in there. You call her if you need anything. Anything at all. I nodded, feeling numb. He stayed for another hour, talking about the boat's engine, its navigation system, all things I did not understand. It felt like he was describing one of his company's assets, not a gift for his mother. Finally, the town car returned to take me home. As I sat in the back of the car, I felt a strange sense of resolve hardening inside me. He had loaned me a yacht. A very, very expensive yacht. A loan has terms. It implies a temporary state of possession. He thought he was putting me in my place, but he had made a mistake.
He had given me something.
And I was going to decide what to do with it. That evening, I called my daughter, Sarah. How was the grand tour? She asked. I could hear the skepticism in her voice. It was overwhelming, I said. Sarah, I need to tell you something. I told her about his whispered comment at the party. Enjoy the yacht I loaned you. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. He did not, she finally said, her voice low and furious. Oh, I am going to call him. No, don't, I said quickly. That's what he would expect. A big, emotional reaction. I don't want to give him the satisfaction. So, what are you going to do? She asked. Just accept it? Let him treat you like that? No, I said, and the word felt powerful. I'm not going to accept it. I just don't know what I'm going to do yet. Well, whatever it is, I'll help you, she said fiercely. He's gone too far this time, Mom. Way too far. Talking to her made me feel stronger. I was not alone in this. The next day, I went back to the marina. I took a taxi this time. I did not want his car. I wanted to approach this on my own terms. I had the key he had given me. It unlocked the cabin door. I stepped inside the silent, opulent space. It felt different without him there. Less like a showroom and more like a very lonely, very expensive prison. I went straight to the compartment with the documents. I took out the thick folder and sat down at a polished wood table in the main cabin. I started to read. The registration was in the name of a corporation. Mark Enterprises Holdings, it said. Not his personal name. That struck me as odd. It was another layer of separation, another way to make it clear that this was a business asset, not a personal gift. The insurance paperwork was the same. I flipped through the pages. Purchase agreement. Bill of sale. Maintenance records. And then I found it. A small, laminated card tucked into a pocket of the folder. It was the official boat registration card. It listed the owner, the vessel identification number, and the name of the boat. The name was not the next chapter. My breath caught in my chest. On the official document, the one filed with the authorities, the name of the vessel was listed as the Upgrade. The Upgrade. The words hit me like a physical blow. It was cruel. It was targeted. It was a direct and vicious insult to his ex-wife, Clara. Mark and Clara had been married for 10 years. She had been with him before the money, when his company was just an idea in a garage. She was warm and funny and kind. She had been like a daughter to me. I loved her. Their divorce had been brutal. Mark had decided she did not fit his new life. He wanted a younger, more glamorous woman on his arm. He had left Clara for a model named Tiffany, who was now his permanent girlfriend. The divorce settlement had been deeply unfair. Mark's high-priced lawyers had run circles around Clara's small-town attorney. She had walked away with very little. And now this. He had bought a yacht and named it the Upgrade. It was a public declaration that his new life, his new woman, was better. It was a way to keep hurting Clara long after the divorce was final. And he had tried to hide it from me. He had told me the name was the next chapter, a bland, meaningless phrase to placate me. But the real name, the legal name, was a monument to his cruelty. I sat there in the silent cabin, the registration card trembling in my hand. The anger I felt was pure and cold. This was not just about me anymore. This was not just about a loaned gift and a wounded ego. This was about his character, about the man he had become, a man who would do something so deliberately, so profoundly mean. The name of the boat was the catalyst. It was the piece of information that changed everything. My vague sense of wanting to do something sharpened into a very specific, very clear plan. He had loaned me his weapon, and I was going to use it, not to hurt him, but to deliver a message. And maybe, just maybe, to help the person he had tried so hard to erase. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Clara. I had not spoken to her in months, respecting her need for space after the divorce. But now I had a reason to call. A very good reason. I pressed the button. Clara answered on the third ring. Her voice was hesitant, surprised to hear from me. Hello, she said. Clara, it's me.
Susan, I said.
I'm sorry to call out of the blue. Susan. It's so good to hear your voice, she said, and I could hear the genuine warmth flood back into her tone. How are you?
Well,
I'm okay, I said. Listen, I know this is strange, but I need to ask you something. Do you remember ever talking with Mark about buying a boat? There was a pause. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, laced with old pain. Of course, she said. It was our big dream. We had a whole plan. We were going to save up and buy a sailboat, nothing huge, and spend a few years sailing around the world when he retired. We even had a name picked out. What was the name? I asked, my heart pounding. Serendipity, she said softly. Because us meeting was the luckiest accident of our lives. Or so I thought. I closed my eyes. The cruelty of it was staggering. He had taken their shared dream and twisted it into this monstrous, gleaming insult. Clara, I said, my voice firm. I think we need to meet. There's something you need to see. We met the next day at a small cafe halfway between my house and the town she had moved to after the divorce. Seeing her was a shock. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered. The bright spark in her eyes had dimmed. Mark had taken more than her money. He had taken her light. We ordered coffee, and for a few minutes, we made small talk. We talked about her new job as a librarian in a small town, her tiny apartment. She was rebuilding her life, piece by piece, but it was hard. So, she said finally, her hands wrapped around her mug. You said there was something I needed to see. I reached into my purse and pulled out the laminated registration card. I slid it across the table without a word. She picked it up. She read the name of the vessel. The Upgrade. All the color drained from her face. She put the card down on the table as if it had burned her. She did not say anything for a long time. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. I didn't know, she whispered. I knew he was angry, but I didn't know he was this hateful. I didn't either, I said. He lied to me. He told me it was named the next chapter. She looked up at me, her eyes full of a new, hard light. The sadness was being replaced by anger. Why are you showing me this, Susan? Because it's wrong, I said simply. What he did to you is wrong. And this is a new level of wrong. He gave me this yacht for my birthday. Except he didn't give it. He loaned it to me. I told her the whole story. The party, the whisper, the way he treated the boat like a corporate asset. She listened, her expression growing more intense with every word. He's flaunting it, she said. He's flaunting his money and his power and the fact that he got away with everything. Yes, I said. He is. So, what do we do? She asked.
It was we now.
We were a team. I have an idea, I said, leaning forward. It's a little crazy, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I told her my plan. I told her I wanted to sail the yacht to her. Not to keep, but as a statement. To take this symbol of his cruelty and turn it into a symbol of our solidarity. She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. You can't do that, she breathed. Why not? I asked. He loaned it to me. I'm just reloaning it. A slow smile spread across her face. It was the first real smile I had seen from her in over a year. The spark was coming back into her eyes. He would lose his mind, she said, a hint of laughter in her voice. I know, I said. That's part of the appeal. But how? She asked. You can't sail a boat that big by yourself. I'll figure it out, I said. I'll hire someone. I'll take lessons. I will get that boat to you, Clara. With a big, ridiculous bow on it. She started to laugh, a real, genuine laugh that made heads turn in the quiet cafe. A bow, she repeated, wiping a tear from her eye. Oh, Susan. You are incredible. No, I said. I'm just a mother who has had enough. The first step was to learn more about the yacht itself. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. I called my friend, Arthur, a retired Coast Guard captain who knew everything there was to know about boats. Arthur, I have a hypothetical question for you, I said. I'm always wary of your hypothetical questions, Susan, he chuckled. They usually involve me helping you move a heavy piece of furniture. What is it this time? It's about a yacht, I said. I gave him the make and model from the paperwork. There was a whistle on the other end of the line. That's not a boat, Susan. That's a small cruise ship. Where did you run into one of those? My son, Mark, bought one, I said, keeping my voice casual. Of course he did, Arthur said. I had known Arthur for 30 years. He had watched Mark grow up. He was not impressed by the Millionaire version. That boy always did like his toys. He said I could use it. I continued. I was wondering, what would it take to move a boat like that? Say, from the marina here down the coast a few hundred miles. You're not planning on driving it yourself, are you? He asked, a note of alarm in his voice. Of course not, I said quickly. I just want to understand the logistics. What kind of crew would be needed? What are the costs? For a vessel that size, you'd need a licensed captain at the very least, he explained. Probably a deckhand too, to be safe. You're talking about fuel costs, docking fees, insurance. It's not a simple undertaking. It's a major operation. He gave me a rough estimate of the cost. It was high, but not impossible. I had some savings, money my husband had left me. I had always been careful with it, saving it for a real emergency. This felt like one. Arthur, do you know anyone? I asked. A captain? Someone reliable and discreet. He paused. I might, he said slowly. There's a fellow named George. He's retired, like me. Does freelance work. As solid as they come. But Susan, what is this really about? This doesn't sound like you. I trusted Arthur. I decided to tell him the truth, or at least part of it. I told him about the name of the boat and what it represented. I did not tell him my full plan, but I told him I needed to move the boat as a symbolic gesture for Clara. He was silent for a moment. That boy, he finally said, his voice heavy with disappointment. I see.
Well,
in that case, George is your man. He has no love for bullies. I'll give him a call and tell him to expect to hear from you. Thank you, Arthur, I said, feeling a surge of gratitude. This means a lot. Just be careful, Susan, he warned. Men like your son don't like it when their toys are taken away. He's not taking it away, I said. He's loaning it. My next call was to Sarah. I told her about the boat's real name. Her reaction was a string of curse words that would have made a sailor blush. That is it, she said, her voice shaking with rage. He is a monster. A complete and utter monster. What are you going to do?
I told her the plan.
The whole thing. Sailing it to Clara.
The bow.
She was silent for a beat, and then she let out a whoop of delight.
Mom.
That is the most brilliant, most badass thing I have ever heard. I love it. How can I help? I need you to be my alibi, I said. And my lookout. I'm going to tell Mark that I'm taking the boat out for a little trip. Just a few days. I need you to run interference for me. If he calls you, just tell him I'm having a wonderful time and my phone is off. Consider it done, she said. He calls me every other day to complain about something anyway. It will be a pleasure to lie to him for a good cause. And Sarah, I added, I need to find out more about the money. Clara mentioned Mark's lawyers buried everything during the divorce. She thinks he hid assets. We need to find proof that he used money that should have been hers to buy that boat. Leave it to me, she said. I'm a teacher. I know how to do research. And I know how to be discreet. While Sarah started her digging, I met with George, the captain Arthur had recommended. He was a man in his late 60s, with a weathered face and clear, steady eyes. He looked like he had spent his entire life on the water. We met at a diner near the marina. I laid out the plan for him. I told him I wanted to hire him and a deckhand to take the yacht down the coast to a small town called Port Blossom, where Clara lived. I told him the trip would probably take 3 or 4 days. He listened patiently, stirring his coffee. He did not seem surprised or shocked. This is your son's boat? He asked when I was finished. Yes, I said.
He
loaned it to me. George looked at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. And he doesn't know you're moving it this far? He knows I'm taking it for a trip, I said carefully. He just doesn't know the destination. He took a sip of his coffee. Ma'am, this is your family business, and I'm not going to get in the middle of it. My job is to safely operate a vessel from point A to point B. If you're the authorized user of the vessel and you're paying my fee, I will take you to Port Blossom. Or to Alaska if you want. It's your call. I am the authorized user, I said, showing him the paperwork Mark had given me, which listed me as such for insurance purposes. All right then, he said with a nod. My fee is this much per day, plus fuel and provisions. We can be ready to leave in 2 days. It was settled. The pieces were falling into place. That night, I had a difficult conversation with Mark. I needed to create the pretext for my trip. I called him. Mark, I've been thinking, I started, my voice brighter than I felt. I'd like to take the boat out. Just for a few days. Get a feel for it. That's great, Mom, he said, pleased. I told you you'd love it. Where do you want to go? I can have my assistant book a slip at a fancy resort for you. No, I said quickly. Nothing fancy. I just want to sail along the coast.
See the sights.
I've hired a captain, a very experienced man. You hired someone? He asked, his tone shifting slightly. You should have let me handle that. I have people. I know you do, dear, I said soothingly. But this is a friend of Arthur's. A very nice, quiet man. I feel comfortable with him. Fine, he said, clearly annoyed that I had taken initiative. Whatever you want. Just don't go too far. And make sure he knows what he's doing. That boat is worth more than his house. The casual cruelty of his remark solidified my resolve. He is very professional, I said, my voice tight. We'll be careful. Good.
Send me pictures, he commanded.
I want to see you enjoying my gift. My loan. I corrected him under my breath after he hung up. The next day, Sarah called me, her voice buzzing with excitement. I found something, she said. It's not definitive proof, but it's a huge lead. What is it?
I asked.
I was helping Clara clean out her garage last night, Sarah explained. She still has boxes of old financial records from the marriage. We found a statement for an offshore investment account. It was in Mark's name, but it was opened while they were married, and the funds came from their joint savings. On the statement, from right before the separation, it had over $3 million in it. My mind raced. The yacht had cost just under $3 million. But here's the thing, Sarah continued. In the divorce discovery, Mark declared that account. But he submitted a statement showing it only had about $50,000 in it. He claimed a series of bad investments had wiped it out, and Clara's lawyer never questioned it.
I asked.
He did, but Mark's lawyers produced a mountain of fake-looking trade confirmations. They buried him in paperwork. Clara's lawyer was out of his league. He told her it would cost a fortune to fight it, and she'd probably lose. So Mark lied, I said. He lied under oath. It looks like it, Sarah said. He must have moved the money, bought the boat through his corporation, and then pretended the money was gone. Clara has the old statement showing the $3 million. If we can prove he used that specific money to buy the boat, he's committed perjury. This was it. This was the leverage. It was bigger than I had imagined. My plan had started as an act of emotional justice, a way to reclaim my dignity and support Clara. But now it was about real, legal justice too. Sarah, you are amazing, I said. I know, she laughed. Now go get that boat. We've got his back against the wall. We just need to give it a little push. The morning we were set to leave was bright and clear. I met George and his deckhand, a quiet young man named Ben, at the marina.
I had packed a small bag.
My heart was a chaotic mix of fear and exhilaration. I was a 60-year-old woman about to steal her son's multi-million-dollar yacht. Or borrow it, rather. George was all business. We've charted a course to Port Blossom. Weather looks good for the next few days. We'll travel during the day and dock at small marinas at night. Are you ready, ma'am? I looked back at the shore. I thought of Mark, sitting in his high-rise office, convinced he was in control of everything and everyone. I thought of Clara, waiting in her small apartment, hoping for a small piece of justice. I'm ready, I said. The engines rumbled to life. Ben cast off the lines, and the massive yacht pulled away from the dock. As we moved out of the marina and into the open water, a feeling of incredible freedom washed over me. The wind was fresh, the sky was a brilliant blue. For the first time in years, I felt like I was the captain of my own life. The journey down the coast was beautiful. George and Ben were professional and respectful. They mostly kept to themselves, managing the boat with quiet efficiency. I spent most of my time on the top deck, watching the coastline slide by. I felt a million miles away from my old life, from the person who smiled politely at parties and swallowed insults from her own son. Each night, we would dock in a small, quiet town. I would have dinner by myself at a local restaurant. I felt anonymous and free. I sent Mark one picture, a generic shot of a sunset over the water. Having a wonderful time, I texted. Don't bother me. He replied almost instantly. Looks great. Don't scratch it. I deleted the message without replying. On the third day, we were getting close to Port Blossom. I called Clara.
We're almost there, I said.
We should arrive tomorrow morning. I can't believe this is happening, she said, her voice a mix of awe and nerves. Are you sure about this, Susan? I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I told her. Now, I have a job for you. I need you to go to a party supply store. I need you to buy the biggest, most ridiculous, most glittery bow you can find. She laughed. On it, she said. We arrived in Port Blossom Harbor just after sunrise on the fourth day. It was a small, picturesque town, the kind of place Mark would have sneered at. The marina was full of fishing boats and small sailboats. Our yacht looked like a spaceship that had landed in a field of daisies. Clara was waiting for us on the dock. She was holding a truly enormous red bow, the kind you see on cars and commercials. It was perfect. When she saw the yacht, her eyes widened. She had seen pictures, but the reality of it was something else. George expertly maneuvered the boat into a temporary slip. Ben threw the lines to Clara, who, to my surprise, caught them and secured them like she had been doing it her whole life. I walked down the ramp and onto the dock. Clara and I looked at each other, and then we both burst into tears and hugged. You did it, she sobbed into my shoulder. You actually did it. We did it. I corrected her. I paid George and Ben, thanking them for their service. George just tipped his hat. Good luck to you, ma'am, he said, and I knew he understood more than he let on. Clara and I spent the next hour attaching the giant bow to the front of the yacht. We used a whole roll of packing tape. It looked completely absurd, a gaudy splash of red against the pristine white of the boat. It was a declaration of war, written in glitter. When we were done, we stood on the dock, admiring our work. It's time, I said, pulling out my phone. My hands are shaking, Clara said. Mine too, I admitted. But we're doing this together. I put the phone on speaker and placed it on a piling between us. I dialed Mark's number. He answered on the second ring, his voice impatient. Mom? I've been trying to call you. Why is your phone off? I was busy sailing, I said calmly. But I just wanted to call and say thank you for the wonderful birthday gift. It's a loan, Mom, he said automatically, his tone condescending. I told you that. Are you done playing with it? I need it back next weekend for a thing with some investors. This is it, I thought. The moment of truth. Oh, I know it's a loan, I said, my voice sweet as sugar. And it's such a generous one. I decided to follow your example and pay it forward. What are you talking about? He asked, a note of confusion in his voice. I loaned the yacht to someone who I thought could really use it, I said. Clara squeezed my hand, her knuckles white. There was a pause. Who? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I loaned it to Clara, I said. She's here with me now. Say hi, Clara. Hi, Mark, Clara said, her voice surprisingly strong and clear. The silence on the other end of the phone was profound. I could almost hear the gears in his brain grinding to a halt, trying to process what was happening. You did what? He finally exploded. The sound was so loud I flinched. Are you insane? You took my boat to her? I will have you arrested. I will ruin you. I am calm. I am in control. You can't have me arrested, Mark, I said, my voice steady. You loan me the boat. I have the paperwork right here saying I'm an authorized user. There's nothing illegal about me sailing it to Port Blossom. That boat is worth millions of dollars, he screamed. You can't just give it away. I didn't give it away, I said. I loaned it. Just like you did. And it's not really your boat, is it, Mark? Not entirely. What is that supposed to mean? He snarled. We've been going through some old papers, I said. Clara and I. We found this fascinating old bank statement. From an offshore account. The one you told the judge was nearly empty during the divorce proceedings. The silence returned, but this time it was different. It was not the silence of shock. It was the silence of a man who has just realized the trap has sprung. It had over $3 million in it, Mark, Clara said, her voice like ice. Just before we separated. Funny, that's almost exactly what this boat cost, isn't it? He did not say anything. He could not. There was nothing to say. He was caught. You lied under oath, Mark, I said quietly. That's called perjury. It's a very serious crime. I imagine your investors wouldn't be very happy to hear their star CEO is a perjurer. He started to speak, then stopped. He was breathing heavily into the phone. The rage had been replaced by panic. What do you want? He finally choked out. What Clara wants, I said, looking at her. She nodded. She wants what she was owed from the beginning. A fair settlement. And she's going to get it. Her new lawyer will be in touch with your new lawyer. I imagine you'll be needing 1 inch. You can't do this to me, he whispered. He sounded like a little boy. You did this to yourself, Mark, I said. You did this when you decided that kindness was a weakness. You did this when you decided that people were just things you could use and throw away. You did this when you named this boat the Upgrade. I picked up the phone. We have to go now. We're going to take some pictures of Clara with her new
loan.
The bow looks lovely, by the way. Goodbye, Mark. I hung up the phone before he could respond. Clara and I stood there on the dock, in the quiet morning air. Then she wrapped her arms around me. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you for giving me my voice back. You always had it, I said. You just needed a little push. We looked at the ridiculous, beautiful, terrible yacht with its giant red bow. It was no longer a symbol of his cruelty. It was a symbol of our victory. The fallout was swift and brutal, exactly as we had planned. Clara hired a new, formidable lawyer from the city. Armed with the bank statements and the clear evidence of the yacht purchase, they sent a letter to Mark's legal team. The word, perjury, was featured prominently. Mark's lawyers, who were used to bullying and bluster, folded almost immediately. The last thing Mark's brand needed was a public scandal involving a bitter divorce and financial crimes. The risk of his investors getting spooked was too great. They agreed to renegotiate the divorce settlement out of court, and quietly. Clara got everything she was originally entitled to, and then some. She got half the value of the hidden account, plus damages, plus legal fees. It was a life-changing amount of money. The yacht, the Upgrade, was immediately put up for sale, with the proceeds to be split between them as part of the settlement. Mark never saw it again. My daughter, Sarah, was ecstatic. She called me the day she heard the news. You did it, Mom. You're a legend, she shouted into the phone. I've been telling all my teacher friends. They want to start a fan club for you. I laughed. It wasn't just me. It was Clara and you too. You found the proof. We were your support team, she said. But you were the general. You know, I haven't heard a peep from Mark. He hasn't called me to complain once since the incident. He hasn't called me either, I said. Our relationship, already so strained, was now completely severed. I felt a pang of sadness for the little boy he used to be, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of peace. The constant tension of managing his ego, of walking on eggshells around him, was gone. I was free. I did get one phone call, a few days after the news broke. It was from Tiffany, his model girlfriend. I just want you to know that you are a horrible, vindictive woman, she said, her voice dripping with venom. You've caused Mark so much stress. He's a good man. I listened to her without interrupting. Are you finished? I asked when she finally paused for breath. You've ruined his life, she accused. No, my dear, I said, my voice calm and even. Mark ruined his own life. He just used other people's hands to do it. And this time, the person he used decided to push back. Have a lovely day. I hung up. It felt good to set a boundary and enforce it. A few weeks later, I was having lunch with Clara. We were at a nice restaurant overlooking the water in Port Blossom. She looked like a different person. The exhaustion was gone from her face, replaced by a calm confidence. She had her light back. The yacht sold, she told me, for an obscene amount of money. Good, I said, taking a sip of my iced tea. I bought a house, she said, a smile playing on her lips. A small one with a garden, right here in town. And I donated a large chunk of the money to the library to build a new children's wing. Clara, that's wonderful, I said, my heart swelling with pride for her. It's all thanks to you, Susan, she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. You taught me that I didn't have to accept being treated badly, that I was allowed to fight for myself.
I think we taught each other that, I said.
We finished our lunch and walked along the harbor. The slip where the giant yacht had been docked was now occupied by a small, cheerful fishing boat. It felt right. I never heard from Mark directly again. Sarah told me he had to step down as CEO for a while, citing personal reasons his company's stock took a hit. His image as the golden boy was tarnished forever. He lost the one thing he truly valued, his perfect public facade. I don't know if he ever learned his lesson. I suspect not. People like Mark rarely do. They just learn to be more careful with who they try to control. But I had learned my lesson. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. I learned that standing up for what is right is always worth the cost. And I learned that sometimes the best gift you can receive is the opportunity to give it away. He thought his money made him a giant. He never imagined his 60-year-old mother could make him feel so small. He learned that day that some things like dignity can't be bought, sold, or loaned. They can only be earned, or, in his case, lost. And in the end, I was the one who got to start a new chapter, not on a borrowed boat, but in a life I truly owned.